So Live Aid was my inspiration. Following that, I just wanted to try and organise a global sporting event for Band Aid and for Africa. So I got on with it. But after a couple of months, Geldof and the Band Aid Trust got the wobbles and they pulled out. It was a really, really difficult time. So today, as part 3 of my video diary to celebrate the 35th anniversary of Sport Aid and Run the World, I'm going to read that bit in my book when Band Aid and Bob Geldof decided to come back on board. Knackered. This was my second New York round trip of the week, and everything I'd worked so hard for rested on the next few hours. I'd gone over the pitch 1,000 times during the short night, but I still felt really nervous. This has to work. I had no luggage, just a small briefcase containing my notes, toothbrush and my prized filofax, and so I headed straight out of the terminal to grab a taxi to Bob Geldof's house in Chelsea. My new erstwhile friend Simon had been with me on both trips to New York. He'd worked with UNICEF before, and it was largely down to him that we got that meeting with its boss, Jim Grant. I will never forget that day at the offices of the United Nations, dressed in faded jeans, a scruffy t-shirt and old trainers. I pitched my big idea. Do you want to do a project with Geldof and Band Aid? Sure. How? Well, it's easy. Look, all you got to do is get your 63 field officers and national committees to organise a fun run. But we're development specialists. We're not race organisers. Don't worry about that. I'll show you how to do it. What's the deal? It's 50-50. Okay, we're in. Of course, the meeting in reality was much more than that. But that was the essence of it. UNICEF, a major UN agency, had just committed 63 countries to my project, the Race Against Time. It felt like ages since that first meeting, and yet it was only 2 days since I met Bob Geldof at Madame Tussauds to give him what I thought was great news. His waxwork dummy was being made while we talked. I preferred that version of him, to be honest, the one that didn't answer back. UNICEF had promised 63 country officers to stage races for us. That's 63 countries just for a start, Bob. What's the deal? It's 50-50. Tell them to fuck off. Well, with that, I headed straight back to the airport and New York to give UNICEF the news and pass on Bob's signature expletive. That lyrical fuck had brightened up more than one live media interview and was now aimed at the United Nations. It was going to be a challenge, but Lady Luck was smiling on me for the first time in a long while. Jim was the first to greet us at UNICEF's headquarters, just across the road from the UN Tower on First Avenue. He had some news of his own, and he looked really excited. There's going to be a special session on Africa at the United Nations. Are you serious? When? May 26th to the 30th. What? Well, can we have the UN as a stage on May 25th? Yeah. Yes, you can. I'll get it for you. I'll deliver the UN. Well, that's it. It's got to be on. Is Bob happy with the 50-50 deal? He's fine. We headed straight back to JFK and caught the next red-eye flight home. And now the fate of my baby rested on the next few hours. Traffic started to increase as we got closer to London, and I could feel the nerves building. The rain eased a little and there was an eerie silence in the cab. We were both apprehensive, nervous, excited. We'd sat up all night, hatching our plan to help change the world. I stared out of the window and started to think beyond the next few hours for the first time in over a week. Shit, what if he says yes? Can I really pull this off? How do I manage Bob Geldof and UNICEF? It'll be a fucking nightmare. Can I really make all this happen? I felt sick. The cab finally pulled up outside Bob's home. He lived in a really nice townhouse just off Sloane Square in Chelsea. It made my rented flat above a shop in Wembley seem a bit shit in comparison. And I started to doubt myself all over again. Don't. This has to work. I hit the bell and waited. Bob let us in and ushered us into the front room. It was quite dark and almost gothic, if I recall. Deep red seemed to be the dominant colour, and I remember thinking this must be how rock and roll stars live. I sat down with Simon by my side, and I could hear Paula upstairs with Fifi, but she didn't come down. Bob sat opposite with an expectant look on his face, and I realised suddenly that the stage was all mine. I took a deep breath. Bob, UNICEF are giving us the UN as a stage on May 25th. The following week is going to be the very first UN special session on Africa. Heads of state and policymakers from all over the world are coming to the UN to discuss the plight of Africa for the very first time. It's amazing, Bob. What we're going to do 1 week before is get an African runner to light a torch from the burning embers of a refugee campfire in Africa. Then we're going to take that runner on a journey through the streets of Europe to meet heads of state and policymakers to demand action. Bob looked interested, and I felt the confidence beginning to build inside me. I was on a roll, and soon words were coming out of my mouth that not even I had heard before. Then we're going to fly him to Greece. We're going to light the Olympic torch in Olympia for the very first time outside the Olympic Games, and then we'll merge the torch of Africa with the torch of sport at the Parthenon. I was winging it. Then we'll build the momentum during the week as he meets world leaders, the Pope, kings and queens, and finally, on May 25th, on the eve of the very first UN special session on Africa, our African runner will run down First Avenue to the United Nations. Bob, you will be there to receive that torch, the torch of Africa. You'll pass it over to President Abdul Diouf, who's chairing the UN special session. So Bob, it'll be like you passing on the responsibility to the governments of the world, telling them to sort out this fucking problem once and for all. This could be your swan song. I looked at him. This has to work. And then you'll light a cauldron outside the UN and will connect the whole world via TV and satellite, and that will be the starting signal for the whole world to run. I took a deep breath. Like a conjurer revealing the rabbit from a hat for the very first time. And we'll put a camera above your head, Bob, and we'll lift the image to another camera in a hot air balloon, and then to a satellite, and then, at that single moment in time, the whole fucking world will run for Africa. There was silence, and then he smiled, and then he said, "Now you've got a fucking show." 50-50 was never mentioned again, and 1 week later, Sport Aid and Run the World was launched to the world's press.